There's one communication technique that top consultants use to make them sound smarter, more influential, and more decisive, and yet most people have never heard of it. The method helps consultants speak with more clarity and authority, and if you've ever felt like your message isn't landing, then this episode is for you. Hi, my name is Russell Pearson, and this is your Consulting Business Podcast, episode 126. Today on the show, I want to talk to you about a deceptively simple communication technique that is used by top McKinsey consultants, and I'm going to show you how you can use it in your consulting business as well. But here's the trap. Most consultants are smart. You'll probably experience being the smartest person in just about every room that you've been in. And that's the problem, because often consultants will actually try to explain their expertise rather than actually get to the point. They build arguments like they're building a court case where the client just needs the verdict. Clients are hiring you to help them make decisions, not give them endless TED Talks. So many consultants are talking about what they've been doing and what's been going on rather than actually getting to the point, because the client at the end of the day has "so what" running through their head. And so what top-down communication does is it flips the script. It actually gets to the point before getting to the detail. And that's the magic that I'll actually walk you through in this episode. It's an easy and fast way to look at communication, and it's going to make your communication so much more effective. We start with the outcome, we then give the insight that actually created that outcome, and then we get to the detail. Let me show you on the board. And so you start, we've got details, right? Now, this is not how we're going to start the communication, but we have details. That is from the different sources that we've been working with. We have some information of some sort that enables us to have insights, which is what did we gain, what knowledge did we get off the back of these details, and finally, the outcome of those insights. So what does it enable us to do? So what? What is the recommendation that comes off these learnings? And so what happens with the top-down communication is we flip the script, because the majority of times the people who are doing the consulting work are working at a detail level, so they're communicating at a detail level. But we're creating these details so that people can make decisions. And if we want to be seen as valuable, we want to be helping them with the insights and the decision-making recommendations at their level of thinking. So a CEO, a founder, someone who we're working with as a consultant will be wanting to make some form of decision. If we don't start here, we're not meeting them where they're at, and we're not meeting them at a place of value. They don't perceive the details to be as valuable as the recommendations and outcomes. And so starting here is starting at the most valuable point in the conversation. So we instantly give them value by our recommendation. We then back it up by saying, these are the insights that enabled us to get to that outcome, and here are the details that enable us to understand and get these insights. So starting here enables us to step into a space of strategy rather than a space of operations. And so let's have a look at what this might look like in practice. So we've got our three levels: outcome, insight, and detail. Now you might have multiple insights, and probably you should have multiple insights for the decision-making outcome rather than one, but I'm going to give you one so you can actually see how it works in practice. So here's an example of a recommendation. We're going to stop working on feature X. All right, so there's a feature that we've been working on, and we're going to either pause work or just stop working altogether on it. That's the recommendation. This is what we think that we should do. Now, why is that? Because people are not using it. Now, there might be other reasons as well, and there should be some other supporting reasons rather than just making a decision off one insight, but that's an example. People are not using it. How do we know people are not using it? Well, we've got some credible data that says that less than 1% of users use the feature in the last 60 days. Okay, so this is our detail. This is the statistic that we actually have that enabled us to come to the decision or come to the insight that people are not using the feature. And so we're going to stop working on the feature, or at least that's the recommendation. What I like in the consulting space is to understand that what we're doing, our job, is to enable people to make decisions and actually get stuff or outcomes done. So get to a place of outcome. And so by doing that, number one, we can't make the decision for them, otherwise they won't take ownership of the decision. And number two, we can't do it for them, otherwise we become a cog in their machine. And ideally, as a consultant, we should be coming in, having an engagement and stepping away, leaving that consulting operation or that client in a better situation than when we arrived. So if we come in, become a cog in their machine, and then rip us out of the machine later on, and the machine breaks, that's not leaving it in a better state than when we arrived. So we want to enable the client to be having a better outcome as a result of our engagement, rather than get too involved, and certainly without taking the opportunity for them to be responsible and have ownership of their own decision making. So at the end of the day, our outcome is a recommendation. So here's another example. We're going to do more presentations. All right, so that's presentations, speaking on a platform specifically to large groups of people. All right, we're going to do more presentations. The insight is that we get more leads, all right, from presentations rather than anything else. So from presentations. And then what our detail might look like is that, 70% of all leads came from presentations. Prezos, right? Presentations. And so, you go, oh, well, what about the 30%? We still want that 30%. Well, if we actually took the time away from all the content creation or all the email marketing or all the other things that we might be doing inside our business, if we decided, and by the way, this is not a recommendation, this is like an example, right? So this might not be true for you. But if we find that 70% of our leads are coming from presentations, we do an additional presentation or double the amount of presentations, then not only are we eclipsing this number, but we're actually saving a lot of time on not doing the other activities as well. And so in actual fact, the recommendation might be we stop doing other things to do more presentations. Yeah. So here's the example though. There's the outcome. This is the recommendation. This is the insight as to why we'd be recommending it. And again, I would suggest that there would be multiple insights and multiple data sources to enable us to come to that outcome. And then this is the detail. The reason why I'm teaching you this is because you will tend to find that most people who have deep expertise find this number, if you're in the marketing space, fascinating, right? Now, for me, very interesting data. But if I start talking about it at my level, at my depth of experience and understanding, I'm losing my client's attention. And so by talking to them up here, they go, okay, more presentations. All right, now tell me more about that. Why that? And then we have the time to actually step down through. But we started with our outcome, which means we are talking at the top rather than the bottom, top-down communication. So we're talking at a space that has the highest value for that client. Now let's look at a smaller example. Maybe we want to cancel Tuesday meetings. And there's all sorts of reasons to cancel Tuesday meetings. Not that there's anything wrong with Tuesday, but that could be the small recommendation. I think maybe we should look at cancelling Tuesday meetings. So I'm going to give you some pitfalls shortly about how this type of communication can go wrong. But that could be the outcome or the recommendation that we're looking at. And maybe the insight is that people or staff, right, are not around on Tuesdays. Right? So they're not available. And you go, all right, well, where's the detail on that? And you go, well, only 30% attendance to Tuesday meetings due to leave, all right? Due to working hours. Now, if there was a different reason, you might have a different insight. So, for instance, 30% attendance that doesn't have a connection to this working hours could actually lead us to say, well, people don't seem to find value in the Tuesday meeting, or people are not, it could just be as simple as people are not attending the Tuesday meeting. And the outcome could be about identifying how Tuesday meetings, or we need to make Tuesday meetings more of a priority if that's what we were going to change. But again, I'm not consulting to you here. This is a made-up example. But I wanted to stress that this is a communication piece, right? So don't look at the content, right? Look around the content, which is to say, if we were to communicate this to a senior leader within an organization, or if we were communicating this to a client, getting to the point is actually going to make our the perception of our value much, much higher. So I think it's possible that we should cancel Tuesday meetings. Oh, okay. Tell me more about that. Well, people are not around on a Tuesday. In fact, we actually did the data, and 30% attendance is what's happening on a Tuesday meeting versus our other meetings, where we have a 90% attendance, and it appears to be due to a clash in working hours. All right, now I've got not only the outcome, but I've got the insight and I've got the detail to back it up. The first pitfall I want to talk about with this is just talking about the outcome, but not having the data to back it up. Because if someone pushes your recommendation, you've got to have reasons. There needs to be some insights that sit under it. So how did we get to that conclusion? There needs to be some data to actually back up how we got to our decision, some details or data, but there has to be some substance there. Otherwise, we may be seen to be shallow, and certainly our recommendations are shallow. And one of the real problems for a consultant is leaving your bias at the door. So even our bias on experience. So like, I've experienced all these things before, and I've seen this all before in my 20 years of doing this same sort of job, and talking to a client with that bias in mind. And so you're going, so I'm recommending this off someone else's experience or someone else's business or someone else's organization. Bringing those bias into this communication channel will often make you seem like you are, yes, experienced, but at the same time not considering their specific situation. And so if you're not considering their specific situation, they don't feel like you are contextually relevant. Relevance is such a key to being seen as an authority. So just because you had relevance out there doesn't mean you have relevance in here. So this data and these insights really need to be relevant to the client so that you can actually show that depth of understanding. Some other pitfalls around this one, especially based off the relevance, is having empathy. Like, do you know, for instance, with that Tuesday meeting thing, maybe the Tuesday meeting for the person you're communicating to is the most important for whatever reason. Maybe it's the one day of the week that they're in the workplace. And so understanding their point of view before delivering a piece of communication is absolutely key to make sure it's landing effectively. That's where timing comes into a lot of this communication. When are you communicating it? Communicating, we need to end Tuesday meetings after some massive announcement has just been made isn't necessarily going to be the best timing. And so understanding when is the right time to actually communicate these things is key. And the only way you can know that is by knowing what's happening inside the organizations or individuals you're working with. So a good step is to actually step into any scenario, even if you've been working with a client for a long time, get a lay of the land. What's going on at the moment? Is the client just in the middle of a divorce? If so, check in with them at some point to know, all right, well, I'm going to suggest some things, but I want to know what's going on for you before we even get to that. I really value small talk in the understanding of situation. Understanding what context and environment you're stepping into before you start giving recommendations and before you start giving advice is a massive key to enable the client to actually take it. If you're not doing those things, you can often come off as aggressive or cold. And if you're wanting to have a long-term relationship with the clients that you're working with, that is not the way to do it. We're building relationships here. So understanding that there is a human in front of you that you are going to be communicating to goes a long way to ensuring that you're going to do the right things to communicate more effectively. Now, if you're running a consulting business like the majority of people who watch this channel, then you may be like, well, where can I practice this sort of stuff? Where can I actually try it on? Because if I go and try it on out there in the wild, I could absolutely make some mistakes. Well, that's where something like the Consulting Guild comes in. It's a peer network that I've put together that enables consultants who run businesses, specialist consultants, to have those peer group communications, but also those peer group trainings where they can learn together and practice together. That's one of the massive opportunities with the Consulting Guild. And if you're interested for more details, go to theconsultingguild.com, fill in an expression of interest, and I will get you all the information. So here's your homework for this session. I want you to take a sticky note and I want you to write outcome, insight, and details on it, And then what I'd like you to do is find an opportunity to write in the details for the communication you're going to have with a client. So the next piece of communication you need to have with a client, I want you to fill it in and stick it up next to you before you either have that communication via video conference or on the phone. It'll allow you to start to practice the method of speaking to the outcome, then the insights, then the detail in that order, so you can get used to how the communication works. Such a large part of the success of any consulting business is not just about the theory and knowing stuff. The majority of people who are consultants are really smart individuals. They have a depth of expertise, but it's about how we communicate these things with our clients and with our prospects, remembering that our point of sale in almost every consulting engagement is a conversation. And so if we want to appear as the person who is talking from the top down, if we want to speak as a trusted advisor, then we need to be meeting that client and prospect where they're at so that we understand, or they understand that we understand their world, right? Once they understand that we understand them, we understand the outcomes that are relevant for them, and we are describing a so what that's going to get them engaged and involved in the conversation, then they're going to be far more engaged to work with us for a long period of time. You know, top-down communication is a great skill of the McKinsey consultant. But the reality is McKinsey consultants are employees. You are running a consulting business, which is why we created the Select Consulting business process, which enables you to actually get more client flow, to build an authority brand, and to actually create outcome expertise. Those expertise that enable your clients to get outcomes. Now, top-down communication is a great method to enable them to hear what you've got to say so they act on what you've said. It's a massive skill of the Select Consultant. We invite you, whether it be in the Forge Business Program or through the Consulting Guild, to explore what a Select Consulting business model can mean for you. And if you like these sort of tactics, these more practical applications, then I'd love you to subscribe to today's episode so that you can get notified when new episodes just like this become available. There is 125 past episodes of the Your Consulting Business podcast. You can get them on YouTube, and you can get them where all good audio podcasts are streamed. We'd love you to subscribe and let us know what you got from today's session. Leave it in the comments so that we can improve. And if you've got any specific questions or statements to make about today's episode, I'd love you to put them there too, because I work very hard to make sure that I respond to every single one of them. My name is Russell Pearson. This is the Your Consulting Business podcast. Until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.